All right, guys, how's it going? So tonight we are going to be probably updating InfluxDB. Their weekly RC just came out like 10 minutes ago. So maybe it's there, maybe it's not. We'll see. I'm guessing it is on their own CDN. Otherwise, there's actually a ton of stuff we have to go over. So let's go straight to the issues and talk about what I did, and then we can talk about what work the InfluxDB team is doing. Let's go to closed. All right, so domain monitoring has been formally closed, especially now that I've dumped the template again. I think I need to work on like a PowerShell script for that. That's why it was still open, but yeah, that's still there. I added an IDS count for both Snort and Suricata. So let's explain this a little bit. Probably should have logged in first, but no biggie. 10.0.8.8086. Monitoring. Bonk. All right. Boards. pfSense. All right. Past hour. There we go. So now the number of IDS alerts is actually independent of whether you're running Snortus or Akata on your pfSense box. I'm going to keep that around until like I get really opinionated against one or the other. Right now I see both of them as having valid use cases, and I started off with Snort and nothing's really changed about like logging or anything like that, so there's no point in killing it. So yeah, so instead of this just being the Suricata alerts, I also added in the Snort alerts, and I count up the number of instances of a field that's unique to each of them. So that way, independent of which platform you're running, it should work out fine. So I go back to the dashboard. Gother, that firewall, is running Snort. We'll pull up a longer time period so we get some alerts, which is going to take a bit to render because it's going through a week of logs. As you can see, there's all these alerts here. Nothing in Suricata, something in Snort, and there's 77 alerts. Now we go to rows over here. It's going to be the other way around, where I'm going to have alerts in Suricata and nothing in Snort, but it's going to show the number of intrusion prevention alerts inside of Snort. The logs would load. The reason why the dashboard's loading a little slow is something we will actually talk about here in a second, but in due time. Optimized telegraph metrics. I decided this isn't a huge deal yet. Most of probably like the biggest amount of metrics I'm shipping is services, which is something I'm going to want on desktops and servers anyway. And there's more important things right now. If scaling does become a problem, I can go there. It's just not a huge deal right now. So that's why the light config's there. Secondary tags were added in the dump, so this way you can granularly import things. Especially now that you can do importing through the UI, it makes sense to like do things based on tags. So if you want everything in the kitchen sink, you got Proxmox, pfSense, Linux boxes, and Windows boxes. Voila, you can dump it in there. But let's say you use OpenSense for the firewall, which is something I don't support, or Untangle or something like that, that already has really good centralized monitoring and dashboarding. I'm not going to stop you, but you still have like Linux boxes that you need to add, or your existing RMM uses that, then you can use this to supplement it, and it makes that use case a lot easier, and it doesn't clutter up the UI with a whole bunch of crap you don't need, essentially. And so it'll only show the dashboards you care about. It'll only show the databases. It'll only show the variables, stuff like that, because it's all been tagged with secondary tags. So, right, the Linux stuff only shows up if you care about Linux, essentially. And in that same vein, did I close that one out? Oh crap, dashboard. That one can actually be closed out too. We'll go over that in a second. Add smart monitoring. Oh man, that's a sore subject. Mass install, sent to us with Fedora support, make email optional, redo readme. Oh, well, I need to make that an issue and then immediately close it. But one big thing that's actually happened, I actually started this last stream and I went through and finished it. There's an optimization I need to make, but it involves going back through the InfluxDB documentation. Is E0, cool. I don't like empty dashboards. That should have a failed service instance from traffic. So you notice now you don't have to select the correct bucket. Right now, I actually found it on the system dashboard. If you watched last stream, it was on there, where he was using somebody else was using the InfluxDB v1 query to do things, where it's just, hey, grab the tags grab every instance of this tag out of a bucket, which is like 2 lines instead of a weird bucket thing that wasn't working in some cases for some goofy reason. So, yay, that works. And now you just pick the host and the interface and the things that only matter to you when you're looking at that dashboard. I am leaning on the side of being more opinionated than being flexible. Like, I'm assuming that you're going to get your Windows metrics from the Windows bucket, so that way you don't have to do that weird thing where you were having to drop down from a second menu every time. Just stupid. So, didn't put that in a ticket. Sorry about that. Remove bucket selection from dashboards. I'm actually gonna like make the full ticket. Currently only show one dashboard. Bucket. Buckets currently only show one dashboard. Buckets only. There we go. Selecting the correct buckets. For each dashboard. It's a pain. Please make it so the correct bucket is selected for the right dashboard. And then I fixed it in a commit. So that's just paperwork. Tickets or it didn't happen is kind of a mentality I'm trying to adapt. It's hard enough to do when someone's paying you. It's really hard to do when it's like your side business and you've already been doing it for a full workday. But documentation and paper trails are a huge deal, which is why I'm building a monitoring tool. All right. So yeah, and just to kind of prove a thing, this is showing up on every dashboard. One thing that is slow and I need to look into is make host queries time dependent. I'll show this off in a second. Probably spelled dependent. Okay. So right now, if we go through the settings in the variable, and we go to our Windows interface, isn't a good example, Linux host. Notice there's no time-bound thing. So that means when you do a query, it could have host information that's just irrelevant to the time period, and that can increase loading times because it's searching through 2 weeks of data instead of an hour, or whatever your retention period is instead of the period you care about. Static host environments, like in an MSP space, not a big deal if you're in the container world where things just magically appear and stop appearing really quick. It could cause some issues and like cause you to have to scroll through more things, and sounds just like a bad time waiting to happen. So that's kind of the attitude for that. So yeah. And that's an InfluxDB 1 query, so I'm going to have to look through the docs on how to do that. InfluxDB 2 time obviously didn't work when I tried it for 2 seconds, so. And this bucket is extremely boring right now, which I am more than okay with. So let's end the past 2 days of data. Yay. So what this is supposed to be, this is going to render bigger. This is going to render better on a bigger screen, is an OCRAP dashboard. So this is just kind of be like, hey, these are things that you should be looking at. Shows the alert, it shows the status, and shows where that alert happened at. It also shows you unremediated threats, failed SSL issues, and failed websites. So stuff that like needs to happen right now. This is kind of the one-stop shop. And then arguably less important is intrusion prevention alerts. Audit failures might make it on here when I add those. That's probably like the next logging thing I want to care about, is either that or like Nginx, or like get into more application specific stuff. And maybe look at shopping around like what's in the Influx community repos, because there's no sense in me starting from scratch when somebody else has already done a good job and I can help make the community better. I think there should also be a ticket out there for adding in my stuff into the InfluxDB community repo. Because yeah, Windows Defender stuff's cool. I need to also bat my eyes at somebody with some ATP keys. I don't run Windows enough to really get the benefit out of ATP or M365, since I learned how to host my mail server and make it bearable. There's not like a whole lot I'm really super worried about, so. That should cover most of the changes. List. Allow closed. Remove bucket selection from dashboard. Mesh Central 5 days ago, 1 week ago. Like config for Linux closed up because of that. Defender statistics, there's no alerting yet. Actually, put that under important. Defender alerts. So this one's interesting, and I've talked about it a little bit on stream before, but essentially what's going on is Windows Defender logs everything as a string, which makes alerting a huge pain to deal with. And right now the solution is, it might be, we can pull it up really quick. Influx, Telegraph configs, Windows Defender.conf. So there's some things right here, but essentially I need to add in some logic in the collector to say, hey, Windows event log thinks these are strings, or the Telegraph collector thinks they're strings. I'm not here to play the blame game really, but whoever thinks that way is wrong. Please make this an integer, is essentially what I need to do. So, with that said, let's write that down. Defender logs out. Fields are coming in as strings, no matter what. In order to alert on them, please go through the fields and cast them as integers in the Telegraph config. All right. list closed. Anything else cool going on? Oh, website's live. I did update the Shift System site. So now it actually reflects the fact that I am doing customized development. So yeah, pricing's super simple. I've talked about this on the stream before. Hosted InfluxDB for up to 300 agents. So an agent is essentially an instance of Telegraph collecting something, or a host. Anything that would show up as a host would qualify as that. So even if you have like one collector collecting stuff from 5 firewalls, that'd be 5 licenses. Hosted remote access, 300 items inside of Mesh Central, and that's a hard cap. The combination of the two, $125 a year. So if you bundle the services, you save $25 a year. That needs to be changed to month. I'll do that off stream. And then additional endpoints, $10 a month after that. Or $10 a month for each additional 100 licenses you need. Some cool blog stuff we do. Like how I set up Proxmox metrics is using the native InfluxDB, sending my Nextcloud Ansible install, and using our Ansible playbooks. That's something I definitely want to like integrate in or make as a sweetheart thing, where monitoring Ansible playbooks with Ansible pull and systemd services is going to be hooked into Shift RMM, like with the alert Ansible pull failed, or something like that. And everything's working right now. Hooray. That's what I like to see. Call my phone. I probably won't answer. Email is going to be the best way to get a hold of us, and then links to the YouTube channel. So yeah, simple one-page pricing. Ignore this year thing. I'm actually changing that like immediately after the stream's over. And I'll add in the customized development item. But yeah. So website's live. I'm not going to be really doing like a huge sales campaign until InfluxDB 2 is production. I think that's pretty self-explanatory why you would want to make sure you're taking people's... Something feels wrong about using something in beta or release candidate status while you're taking people's money. Feels a little weird to me. And I think there's also going to be some packaging things that are going to be changing here. So before I start getting paid for this, I definitely want to make sure it's production ready. So it's there. Feel free to contact me, and I'll definitely make sure to let everyone know everywhere what's going on. So with that said, I believe the stream title says I'm going to update InfluxDB, and I'm going to be updating InfluxDB and doing some UI improvements. So let's get the easy stuff done first. First of all, let's make sure that this is a real link. Hey! So it is up. So the GitHub release, I must have had a fun day. Influx data, InfluxDB. Let's go over to their releases. Yeah, there's not a whole lot of hubbub about V4 yet. For users upgrade, window pushdowns. Yeah, I guess it just hasn't rendered yet. Make tag keys. Looks like nothing too bad. Woot woot. Added a Flux update. That's a really interesting thing, is that they decoupled the query language from the database, which is really interesting. So that way they don't have to necessarily worry about breaking stuff. Or about like having to release these big things where it's the database and the query language. They can kind of go off on their own way. and they want Flux to flourish into a functional way to query any database, not just Influx or time series data. Because there's already like from SQL and to SQL where you could do SQL queries. Anyway. Collect, parse fields. That looks interesting. I think there's a lot of things about like getting the upgrade path nailed down right now, which is fair. That's definitely a big thing. One thing that's actually come up and something I want to see is V1 to work with Grafana. So I'm a huge Grafana fan. Initially, this was planned to be Grafana dashboards, but there's some UI concerns that made that not a thing. Ansible playbook inventory. Shift RMM YAML ask become pass. God. Every time. I forget to do SSH dot or tilde SSH ID under. There we go. It's going to go through the Mesh Central setup. Mesh Central, just while this is going on, hasn't had like a big update or anything like that, but it has been having active work on it. I haven't looked in the commits, but still being worked on. No new releases. I have been having memory leak issues on some Windows stuff. I was having that on Linux, but that seemed to have gone away, so something I'll look into if it's not fixed in the next release and start helping out those guys there. But back to Grafana. So Grafana is a really cool dashboarding tool, but the problem is that if you have Grafana, sorry, I'm just making sure I'm running the wrong version. RC3? The hell, man? Oh, I didn't save. Anyway. Grafana. So adding in Grafana would cause some huge problems with usability, but it would also make it more user-friendly and prettier at the same time. It's weird, but Grafana has some visualizations that are really cool. Practical. World panel is really neat. Is a good example of that, where it's like, it looks cool, but is it useful? Nah. But other things are like being able to click on stuff and narrow it down to just that host is a really nice feature that's not in the Influx dashboards. And getting to utilize more community stuff for platforms that I don't support, like VMware, and stuff that would require me to spin up infrastructure I don't want to use and don't have a good use case for. I am not a huge fan of VMware. Hyper-V I can tolerate. So it'd be really cool if I can find someone else's work and assimilate that into the project rather than have to have 4 different hypervisors in my house and I only maybe care about 2 of them and actually care about 1 of them. Not that I hate Hyper-V or XCP-ng or anything like that. It's just Proxmox is the best thing for my use case by a country mile, and having multiple hypervisors around and having to learn and keep all that knowledge is it's tough. So it'd be really nice if I can take advantage of other people's work for that. And reciprocate that. Obviously, everything I have is out there and permissively licensed too. And I would plan on like making it better if I find quirks and stuff like that. All right. Is everything broken? That is the question. Session got timed out. Monitoring stuff. Everything works. Another awesomely boring upgrade from InfluxDB. Good job, guys. Let's see if the dashboards are still going burr. Boards. Oh. Nice. Everything's still rendering. Cool. Yeah, but the links in Grafana would be, I could go to like Suricata and click on an IDS alert, and it would calculate that, oh, he clicked on this IDS alert, so like the IDS alert would reduce to 1, and it would only show the statistics for that alert. So yeah. And it would also maybe allow me to pick a better logging solution in future. Security logging is something I'm really interested in, and maybe having like a halfway SIM, like not full SIM, but you know, get like the basic stuff. Better than what an RMM would give you, but not like a full blown out Elasticsearch or like a Datadog. Somewhere in between. So that way you're not sifting through like terabytes of data, or I would have to manage that. It would be something much more manageable and much more like brutally simple. As much fun as it is to get all the pretty charts from Elasticsearch, they're really slow to load and obviously would cause a lot of data, which means prices would go up, and price is something I'm really conscious of since I had a stint in manufacturing, and it seems every manufacturing plant I go to is super price conscious because they do everything a million times. And when you save a cent, like if you save a penny on something that you do a million times, you've saved $10,000. So when you go to them quoting Meraki, they lose their stuff pretty quick. Or it's a much harder sell than like Ubiquity or something like that. Anyway. All right. So now we're going to go through our alerts, and we're at the section where we are going to do some examination. So let's go Windows low storage. So we need to make an 80 and a 95 for storage in Windows. So let's go to here. I'm just going to go backwards through the dashboards and make color-coded alerts for like warnings and critical that correspond with the alert. So that way you get a visual indicator in the dashboard as well as Serena on, Escanor on. Okay, cool. So you'll get a visual indication as well as a like an email or an alert. So this is where you go to customize, 1984, hover dimensions. So now we need to do base color, add threshold. When value is greater than, oh crap. It's 80 and 95 and that was disk usage. Oh, dang. Hover dimension. So let's go Tiger, add threshold, value is above 95. Simple as that. All right, Spotify's like on point with the death metal mixes tonight. All right, RAM usage. I want to say it's just an oh crap at 95. So let's go back to our alerts. Let's search for Windows. High RAM usage. 95, cool. So now let's go back to the dashboard, going bare. RAM usage, boop, boop. And customize, scroll down here. I will say, although Grafana is better than InfluxDB for dashboards, I didn't really complete that thought entirely. The downside of adding Grafana is that you have two places to do things. So dashboards would be in one place, and then alerting and everything like that would be in the other. The other thing is I would have to backport everything to InfluxDB 1, or Grafana would really have to set their game up for InfluxDB 2, because you would also lose like a WYSIWYG way to fumble around your data, which kind of sucks. Oh, whoops. That was laser, add threshold, 95. And that is going to be Ruby. And then I believe CPU usage. Oh, crap. Below 10 and oh. Okay. That's right. So to do CPU usage, it's a 1 minus thing. So below 10, it's trippy, but because it's a 1 minus thing, the alerts can't do customized flux queries, and that's why it was 10 instead of 90. So add threshold, when value is 90, use the color of my next tape. And then 75 is going to be warning, which is LT gray. Inbound and outbound traffic is meh. IDS alerts are going to be tricky too, because like that is hugely dependent on what's going on that firewall. Networking stuff is fun. That's why you don't see me doing like traffic alerts and stuff like that, because it's hard to find like a good universal number for the amount of network traffic that's questionable or worth notifying someone about. So like movie editor having gigabit plus network traffic on their interface, totally reasonable. But like me as a developer, that's not going to happen a whole bunch, or somebody editing spreadsheets, probably not at all. So that one's like very hard to figure everything out. So let's go to boards. Let's go to Linux, because Linux is my next victim. Linux, high CPU. I'm guessing it's 1025. Yeah. Just making sure. And this is another 1 minus 1. Configure. Oh, nice. You can do like ectoplasm and stuff too, which is cool. It's nice that they do Android's Dream of Electric Sheep. I think that's supposed to be more of a Grafana one. Or influenced by looking at it. Value is bigger than 75. Ah. And then fire. And tiger. Yeah, feel free to ask questions in chat while I'm doing this. This is kind of a tedious task, so. And the only, I guess there's been some fun personal stuff going on I can talk about. RAM usage, I want to say it's 95. I have been doing some cool personal stuff recently. Doing a jiu-jitsu tournament again soon. I haven't done one of those in like more than a year. I was starting to get the bug to compete again, and then COVID happened, so kind of put the kibosh to that. Above 95. And that goes to the color of my mixtape. And then disk usage is going to have a warning. Add threshold, add threshold. We're going to add fire, and we are going to add a threshold for tiger. Yeah, 10's probably a little ridiculous. What is it? 75 and 90. Oh, something else entertaining going on is my girlfriend gets to bring her dog to the office now, and I get updated throughout the day of the adorable shenanigans. Her manager is like dead set on making her friend, and she's a Shiba, so she's like a barking cat, so she takes a little bit to warm up to you. So he's just like super. I've never seen this guy get more enthusiastic about anything than about like the little Shiba like licking his hand or doing something like super benign. Or at least I think it is, because like she freaks out around me because I like coddle her and give her too much affection and treat her like the goodest girl ever. Because she is, but what are we at? Disk usage. Sorry about that. 75, 90. Linux, high RAM usage. Yeah, 75, 90. Cool, cool. Boards. Proxmox. Proxmox, I can do the visual one. There's not going to be one for RAM. I take that back. Proxmox RAM is interesting, though, because it doesn't natively report the amount of RAM used, and you can't do math queries yet, and I'm debating about whether or not it's worth it to just, like, say screw it. But the reason why I don't really care if Proxmox RAM is kind of high is in most use cases that I foresee this being used in, it's going to be using ZFS. And ZFS has a weird cache thing going on. Weird in an amazingly good way, where instead of just a simple like first in, first out cache, it has the cache is divided in two. Let's go 90. The cache is split in two, and it initially starts off, I think it's every boot, where it starts off half and half first in, first out, has frequency used, and the cache, the size of the two caches will dynamically adjust based on which cache is better. So it has like a little part where it logs like what's been evicted, and if it hits again, whichever thing would have hit it before gets a little bigger, so it would cover that case. So that way it prevents things like backups from just evicting everything from cache and making it essentially useless. So yeah, that's just a really cool ZFS thing. Kind of blows my mind. Tiger, fire, and value is greater than 90. And we'll add this one in just for fun. Or no, CPU's just 95. All right, load. Load's an interesting number that doesn't necessarily matter, especially once you start getting into redonkulous cores. And that kind of goes back to Flux not having numerical alerts yet, so. I say yet, and I need to preface that with GUI. You can write your own custom task that would create that alert, but yeah. So boards, pfSense. Oh yeah, Veil of Panath. Those guys are awesome. I need to get back more into melodic death metal. I've been listening to a lot of EDM lately, and it's been fine, but time for something new. Both are really good for focusing because you can't understand the words and the music's interesting. I hate listening to stuff. So like I'm a huge Bayside fan, and like emo music and stuff like that. It's terrible to listen to at work for me because or it's terrible if I'm like thinking at work. Because it's hard to think when you're doing or when you're listening to like words and the words are actually interesting. And a lot of emo bands have like really clever metaphors about how sad they are. And so you actually want to pay attention to the lyrics. Whereas with death metal, it's fun to read along with the lyrics, but it's also really enjoyable just to listen to how insanely fast those guys can play and still play clean. $75.90, perfect. RAM, bonk. The other thing about IDS alerts is how you're tuning it, so that's another reason why I haven't gotten super into like alerting on it. RAM's just going to be 95. Yeah, that kind of covers the gambit. Yeah, I can dump it out and export it on stream, but it looks like everything's going fantastic. No alerts from updating stuff, so sadly it's going to be a bit of a short stream tonight, I think, but there's other stuff I want to do, but it's more like business related and showing a whole bunch of private information to like take up all my properties on like Facebook and LinkedIn and stuff. And I don't think I should be streaming that live for personal security reasons as well as sanity. So yeah, it was really fun streaming tonight. Really good excuse to play with my pretty charts and listen to death metal. I'm glad you guys can join. Have a good day. See ya.